So what we see going on here is pretty straightforward. And it goes back to the West's failed conceptions of being a warrior. How many of you believe Israeli propaganda, American, English, what have you? How many of you believe that? Australia. Do you believe it? Do you believe that they're actually fighting the good fight? Nobody does. Nobody does. So why would people who must know that no one believes them and their so-called conceptions of being a warrior, their conceptions of being holy, what have you, why would they try to get me to roll with it? Because they have an inferiority complex. Why do they make the black faces make fun of black people? Again, I'm not a racial supremacist. These are key facts here. Because they have an inferiority complex. Now, that's something they need to address as soon as possible. God is not going to give them second chances. What is Isaiah 63 about? The chapter I just went. This should be probably the second part of that first video. It's about how they didn't assist God. There's people in the military and police and then all kinds of people in churches all over the world. So why don't you hear them say that they don't agree with how it ends? Because they know it ends with them on the wrong side of a spiritual war. They know they're nearly identical to the other churches. Their spirits, their way of doing things, their agreement with the governing class, you name it. Nearly identical. Broad path to destruction, clear cut. And it goes back to their conceptions, right? There's a thin line between Conan the Barbarian and American Special Forces, right? Very similar. The Conan the Barbarian puts his sword down, puts on a Navy SEAL outfit or some Army Ranger, then he looks just like one of them. And they try to, sing his praises, but he's just a pagan, Nordic barbarian. Think about it. I don't care what race he is. These are the facts here. I care that there's a group of people trying harder than everyone else on the planet to try to make it seem like they're chosen, like they're legitimate, and they're trying to coerce me for no reason, even though no one believes them. If they did believe them, it would just be for a stupid, immature lie and for their inferiority complexes. That's stupid, right? That's pathetic. That's childish. Grow up. Grow up. Pretty straightforward, right? And so when we look at the conceptions here, according to Hagakure, a martial artist, according to the guy who wrote the Hagakure, this person who was into his Japanese warrior culture, he said that a martial artist to him is someone who masters techniques. And a warrior to him is somebody who does martial arts, who's a warrior, who's something to that effect because his heart demands it. Now you see how that's much different. When you think of a warrior, you think of like a brute because of the West and their wordplay games, their Babylon games. They've confused it around the whole world. You go to China, their military is very similar to a Western military. Their exercises, their equipment, right? Pretty straightforward. The N word is said to be a play on words for no gear, and it is said to mean ignorant. And they also say someone's an Niggard of their speech. And these people try to confound your speech. And the Bible says the Lord is the warrior, the Lord is his name. It seems to line up with the Hagakure, right? Not quite, because when you picture him, when you first read it, you're like, what is it saying? What does it mean that the Lord's a warrior? And when you see the Hagakure, you think that they're talking about a samurai, things of that effect, right? So we have these two instances that seem to line up, but they don't quite line up, do they? They both confuse what a warrior is. Now, what is a warrior? Warrior, partially, is in its truest sense, a warrior with positive connotation, in a narrow sense, in truth, is someone in the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, regardless of what race they are, who obeys God through me, who is man enough. A warrior has to be a man first in order to advance beyond the broad definition of a man, maybe more a somewhat narrow definition of a man, into somebody who's a man and a warrior. The Lord is a warrior. This is something sacred. So if we go by the truest interpretation of the Bible, then we get that a warrior is a warrior of God in the divine, or not someone in church who's reading Ephesians, not somebody who works out at the gym, has some kind of tattoo of his people. There's lots of people like that. They're just pagan guys who never grew up. A warrior is someone who's man enough to obey God through me. The Lord is a warrior. The devil is like a child. Folly's in the heart of a child. Folly represents the devil. Wisdom represents God. The wise woman chooses the warrior of God. The foolish little girl chooses a foolish little boy who never grew up, who's of the devil.